Welcome to the Single Father Podcast. I am your host, Kendall Donaker. This podcast is dedicated for anyone out there who's dealing with mental health and fatherhood. You'll hear about my struggles, my defeats, my victories, my highs, my lows, my triumphs, my tribulations, and everything in between. I like to call this a collection of journal entries into my struggle and adapting to single fatherhood. Without further ado, let's take a look inside my journal, the Single Father Podcast. Guys, I have an amazing guest on today's show, psychiatrist, Dr. Khemani. He is amazing. Talk about someone you can learn from. He's in India, but I really wanted him to be my psychiatrist. He gives a lot of inspiration on, the times that we're in right now. And I think he gives some really great tips on how to move forward. I was thinking about it. I have this tattoo on my arm. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and to change the things that I can. And within speaking to him, I think you get a really good representation of kind of what that means. He's such an amazing person to speak to. Such a good guy. I'm really thankful that he was on today's show, and I really learned something. I really did. I really think you're going to love this episode. Without further ado, let's go. Hello from across the world.
Absolutely.
Thank you for being a part of the podcasting. I really appreciate it. I was excited.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
So, Doctor, can you, for anyone who doesn't really know much about you, can you give a little background about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Dr. Rahul Khemani. I am a consultant psychiatrist practicing in Mumbai in India since the last 5 years. I have done my psych specialization, a state in the south of India, which is very well known for education and studies, and especially mental health. And I have been actively working both in the government as well as the private sector. Right now, I have a private clinic in Borivali in Mumbai, and I typically see patients across all the age groups, that is child, adult, as well as geriatric population. And I come across a variety of illnesses like anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. And I believe that the treatment for mental illness should be holistic, which includes both medications as well as therapy.
Well, what brought you into what got you into practicing psychiatry and mental health in the first place?
So I remember that while I was doing my MBBS, that is the med school for us, that is our graduation, I was always interested in understanding about a person more. I would always act like a detective. Like I would actually call myself Sherlock Holmes of the medical world, where I would like to, investigate, talk to them, understand about, how it began, what began, and what did they go through. So, but naturally, I started reading up a lot about psychology and psychiatry, and then we have our internship at the end of our med school. So over there, I took up psychiatry as a voluntary post, and I was working in the department where I got a lot of exposure to understanding about what goes on in a person's mind and how to, take care of a person going through a mental illness, and where people would be feeling scared about how, this person who's going through a mental illness will behave with you. For me, it would come naturally, and more so because I am a great listener. So I like listening to people a lot, and people would always comment on that as well.
What would you say is probably the main benefit to probably holistic psychology or psychiatry?
Yes, absolutely. What happens is that all psychiatric illnesses are basically include two ways of happening. Basically, it's like the first way is the psychological reason behind the illness, where a person, due to either the nature or the nurture. The nature is the way a person is born, the genetics, the hereditary part of the person, the way that the person is born, and then the nurture, where the person is brought up, how which company he comes across, how are his parents, how are his teachers, how does he go ahead in life, how is his primary environment. So the psychological reason over here plays a very important role in the development of the mental illness. And the second part to it is the biological reason. Now, this is the most significant part, because unless and until we do not look at the biological reason, uh, the treatment does not, happen. So the biological reason primarily consists of neurochemicals. It includes the primary neurochemicals of dopamine and serotonin. I know it sounds too much too soon, but basically, to understand these chemicals, we just can think of the example of how a vehicle requires petrol. So that's the same way our mind requires these. As long as these chemicals are in their perfect proportion, and they are, running smoothly in a very balanced manner, the mind has three functions basically. It has the function to think, it has the function to feel, and the function to behave. So first it thinks, the thinking leads to a feeling, and that feeling automatically leads to the behavior. So this all is regulated by these chemicals, or analogy wise, it is the work of the petrol to make the car run. So what happens during these illnesses is that these chemicals reduce. So, but naturally, when there is going to be less petrol in the car is going to malfunction. It's not going to run smoothly. Now, if you ask me in relation to this car and to this petrol, what are the what is the therapy process and what is the natural ways of meditation and yoga? I would say that these are just like oiling, painting, and taking care of the car. So holistically, you need to take care of the car from every way, not just fill up petrol and expect the car is going to run smoothly for the rest of your life. You need to get it servicing done. You need to change the oil. You need to polish it, do a paint job, take care of it. So that's the same way everything works holistically.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really deep way to, look at that. Um it's interesting
Absolutely.
because I remember, well, I've struggled with, depression before in the past, and I got on antidepressants, but one of the things that was really stressed to me is that you should also take care of yourself. It's not just medication. You should do yoga. You should maybe go work out. You should seek therapy. You should, and maybe make your bed in the morning. I mean, so
Absolutely.
are those practices?
That's
Yeah.
very essential. Those practices are the ways that you rehabilitate yourself back to the world. So what happens? People think that anxiety and depression and other kinds of mental illnesses is all in the mind. Unfortunately, since they can't see it, and since it's not seen on any of the tests, like for example, if you get a fracture, you can see it on an X-ray, or you get an infection, so you can see that the temperature is raised. The thermometer shows raised temperature. But unfortunately, when there is a disturbance in your mental health, it's only you who feels it. People constantly pass comments like, hey, it's okay. You just have to fight it. You just have to wake up in the morning on your own. You have to just push yourself. But they don't understand that how difficult it truly is to do these kind of things. So this is where the role of both medications and your self-care activities come. Because once you start with medications, it's just like, again, I'll explain it with the same example, that when you fill up the petrol in the car doesn't start moving automatically. It's that you have to drive it forward. So the same way, when you start getting these chemicals, your body starts healing, and it starts becoming more positive, more understanding. It starts to think positively, actively, and that is the same time that you have to start implementing your day-to-day activities. You have to start getting back into your social relationships. You have to wake up early in the morning. You have to make your own bed sheets, help your mom or your wife in cooking, and you have to get around the house, get around the workplace, put in effort to do it so that you feel that yes, this is what is improving and this is what is lacking. This is what is therapy all about. That is what the person will come back after a few days for the next follow up and tell the doc that this is the thing that is remaining now. How do we work on this now? But unless and until you don't try that, you'll never know about it.
I really couldn't agree more. Some people, you're right, will say, "Hey, it's you're young, or you're fine. Just push through it and get over it." People are starving other places, but I think that really kind of negates your own feelings. You're like, "Well,
Precisely.
that may be true.
It it it
You'll feel horrible."
it, it impacts your self esteem even more. It makes you feel even worse about yourself, because this is what happens in anxiety and depression, that you start losing a part of yourself to the illness. And these comments are kind of shaming you, so they kind of make you feel that, oh my god, if I can't do this much, how am I going to proceed in life? Because as equally other people can't understand, our own body also finds it's very difficult to accept it, irrespective of however much we have advanced in life. When it comes to the point of your mind, we always take it for granted. And I believe that is one thing that people really have to overcome.
That's true. Why do you think? Why do you think mental health gets such a bad name sometimes? I mean, it's getting better, but what's your what's the fear around mental health, you think?
So, if you're asking me about fear, let's go about it in two ways. There is the fear about your own self, where you feel that, oh my god, if people come to know that I'm anxious or I'm depressed, they will stop regarding me as someone important. They might start feeling that I am having a disability. I will be outcasted from all the roles and everything. People at your job will start maybe neglecting you and not considering you as part of them. It's even more scarier than one of the most infective illnesses. People start feeling that, oh, then this person is a useless person. But this is what you need to understand, that this is what your own depression is doing to you. It is directly affecting your capacity to think rationally. The second thing that happens is the fear that the society has. So I come across a lot of patients or people who come and tell me that, doctor, that my relative is undergoing depression, but I don't want to tell the world and I don't want to tell the people, because what will people say, that his entire family is responsible for that? So unfortunately, people do not have adequate information about mental illness, about mental health. They don't understand that our body, we generally are made up of two parts, our mind and our body. So just how our body has its own physical health, the way we take care of our body, we sleep on time, we eat healthy food, we exercise. That's the same way we have to do certain things for our mental health, and that is one thing that people feel is in our control. So when the society comes to know about it, they, as you correctly said, that they start passing comments. They start saying that, oh, this is completely fine. I mean, you are a young person, you should be able to fight this. This is just in your mind. So this is where it stems from. And automatically, if this is what you see from your childhood, you are going to believe that in your adulthood as well.
And when we're speaking of childhood, how much or how significant does does your parents' role play on your long-term effects of your mental health?
It plays an extremely big role, because this is the part of the nurture that I was speaking on. So, just like how you nurture a plant and you have to take care of it, you have to put the adequate amount of water and sunlight and and make sure that you put the plant inside while there is too much of sun or when there is too much of cold. The same way, the child is growing through phases. So there are different, kind of stages of life, the developmental stages where slowly you pick up things, you develop your own identity, you develop a way of dealing with things. So all these things are basically learned while you're growing up. So your child learns from you. This is the most important thing that I would like to put across. It's like they carbon copy you. So if you use a word, they start using the same word. If you act in a particular way in a situation, they learn to act in that same way too. Like if you get angry on them, for a particular thing, they're going to get angry on the same thing to somebody else. So a lot of parents come to me telling that their child have become aggressive and they have been, picking up fights and everything. And then I ask them a simple question that, have you all been fighting with each other, or has the child been witnessing the mother or the father getting into a heated conversation with someone? And then the parents say, yes, they do. And this is where I tell them that, see, this is what he's picking up. He's realizing that so the parents are supposed to be the first teachers of the child, and it's going to get imbibed in the child that this is the way that needs to be done. So automatically, when a child learns all these maladaptive, techniques to handle stress, to handle situations, eventually there will come a time when irrespective of however good they have learned these things, they're going to be maladaptive and they're going to affect their own mental health. And then they're going to realize that this is a conflict, a direct conflict in what they have learned and what they should be doing. Because once they get into school, once they get into college, that's what they see. They see their peers getting involved in a different way and being appreciated in a different way. They being punished in a manner. So all these things have a huge interplay, and they affect the child's mental health in a very significant manner.
Wow. Doctor, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was, I mean, you always hear about maybe some, domestic violence and, the someone staying, like they keep coming back to the person. Is there a psychological reason behind that? Like the why someone would experience, physical or verbal abuse, but then come back to the same abuse, maybe a day later? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. In fact, over the long term period, any kind of physical or unfortunately sexual abuse has been one of the triggers for an illness called as post traumatic stress disorder. This is just one example of such an illness, but there can be multiple other illnesses. There can be a point where, in depression as well, a person keeps revisiting his past. It could be just about maybe the physical or the sexual abuse, or it could be abusive relationship that the person has been. So basically, as I was explaining, the child's mind is like a sponge, and it is developing. It is developing to a full grown plant is what I would say. So in the process, if you direct it in a particular shape or you harm it, that harm stays on. So what a child does is that it just pushes it down somewhere because it can't deal with it instantly. But at another point, when we start growing up and when we come across situations which are difficult for us, automatically our mind revisits that situation, because when the mind is scared, it run back to its original default difficult state, the thing that it was not able to handle. And then this is the point where you suddenly start feeling extremely low. You start feeling scared. You start feeling that, you won't be able to fight across. You get flashbacks, you get memories, but you don't understand why you're getting them. A lot of these clients and patients come to me telling me that they don't have any kind of remembrance about the events that happened, but suddenly in between they wake up with dreams of those instances. And I ask them that, when was this happening? And they said that it was a particularly difficult day. And this is where the role of unconscious comes. If we are digging deeper over here, the mind is made up of three parts. The conscious part, the one where we are talking, like you and me, we are conversing everything, we are able to understand things directly. Then comes the subconscious, which is the neck of the bottle. And then comes the unconscious part, which is the content of the entire bottle. So it's only through the subconscious that the unconscious is connected to the conscious world. And whenever some difficult event like an abuse, as you correctly said, is occurring, that goes into the unconscious mind. And this unconscious mind is accessible only when the stress or the anxiety crosses the threshold. And that is what exactly happens when you're going through anxiety or depression.
Do you think that's why, people will experience maybe like random panic attacks, like when they're out and about or something like that?
Precisely. You couldn't have excited a better example right now. This is what exactly happens in a panic attack. What I ideally, again, like to explain to people about panic attacks is that panic attack is like a movie going on in the unconscious mind, in the background of your brain. So, for example, let me explain it in this manner: that when you watch a horror movie, or you are feeling scared about something, you have these goosebumps and you start having shivering and tremors, and heartbeat increases, and you start feeling a little breathless. But now you know that this is happening because of the movie that you're watching, or it is because of a predictable event that is occurring. The thing that happens in a panic attack is that this movie that is going on in the background and in your unconscious mind triggers it. And unfortunately, since you're not, able to access your unconscious mind, automatically you don't understand what is happening. And this is the point where uncertainty plays the role. Human mind cannot handle uncertainty. And this is the reason why the number of cases of anxiety and depression rose steadily during this lockdown phase and during this COVID-19 phase. This is the reason why people got scared, because they do not know what is going to happen tomorrow. The same way, when this panic attack is happening, they do not know why this is happening. And this is what makes them get scared even more. Such people consult cardiologists, pulmonologists, other general doctors, ultimately finding that all the results are normal and eventually coming back to the mental health professional.
If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has the tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
No, doctor, you mentioned COVID-19, and I'm always curious about this question. In a time where I remember, well, when I was feeling down, I would social distance myself from other people, but now
Right.
forced to. And sometimes it can be really lonely for some people. What do you think the long-term effects of, staying socially distanced from people and staying alone kind of can affect the mental health?
So a lot of people cite me examples of telling that we were introverts before we, anyways, were not, going out socially and meeting up with people. But this is not what this social distancing was about. Unfortunately, we get our energy from other people. We get our positivity from looking at the environment, with interacting with people, even if it is not on a very personal basis. So what has happened due to this COVID situation is that people have become very isolated. And a lot of people again would just counter question over here saying that, okay, fine, we are staying with our families. But this again, in fact, became one of the biggest problems, because initially it was fine, but eventually it came to a point where a person lost his own privacy. The person did not feel comfortable because they were surrounded by the same people all the time. So our human brain and our mind requires a constant change of environment. If that was the case, that we could stay at one place I believe that everyone would want to just stay in one place until and unless everything is safe outside. But that is not the case. Everyone wants to revolt against it. Everyone wants to, just fight out of this feeling that is enveloping you, and it's making you difficult to feel. So the basic nature of a human is to explore, to find out things in their environment. And that is what primarily was limited during this COVID phase. So as I said, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, do you think there will be more cases of, maybe anxiety or depressive disorders after this pandemic is over?
Absolutely. So now, initially, it started with the fear of uncertainty. And that is the reason why there was a rise in anxiety and panic and depression. Following that, there was this phase which I spoke of where a person lost his privacy, a person started missing his freedom, his way of expressing and interacting with the world. And now, while the world is unlocking, the number of cases of COVID affecting their family members and the way it is, happening. In fact, I got a call from one of the patients yesterday who was doing completely fine up until 3 months back, when suddenly she started hearing a lot of deaths among her family, among her friends, among people in her vicinity, in the neighborhood. And this is what triggered an episode of anxiety. Even though she is not scared for her own life, it is the manner of the world is that is rare right now, the way the people are right now. And that is what is, kind of scary for a person. When you see so much happening outside, so much scary things, you automatically impact your own mental health as well. So yes, I believe that now that people are unlocking, they are going to come across situations that are going to be directly in contact with COVID, and that is going to make people feel more anxious and low.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And sometimes I think that's why people get maybe so you see videos of people getting so angry, but I think maybe part of that is just like they're fed up with just being inside and they just want to socialize.
Precisely.
Yeah.
In
So
fact, anger, irritation is one of the commonest feature of anxiety, and people think that this is very natural to feel angry, but yes, this is something that could be indicative of your anxiety as well.
nah, you're absolutely right. It's so, doctor, if I was coming to you with a depressive disorder, anxiety, I mean, could you briefly walk me through kind of what would be maybe your treatment plan for that?
So, so So the first thing when a person with either anxiety or depression comes to me, I try to evaluate whether what the person is going through first. See, there is a difference between sadness and depression. A person can feel sad for numerous reasons. A person can feel sad if they fail in an exam. They can feel sad when they lose out on something. They break up in a relationship. When they lose a family member, it could be natural grief. But depression is much more than just sadness. Depression also consists one part of the mood that is being sad, but that mood is persistent, it's pervasive, and it is deep rooted. And most importantly, it is consecutively present for more than 2 weeks at least. So, along with that sad mood, the person also experiences a loss of interest in previously pleasurable activities. The person has no energy to work out, to do anything at all, even from the most basic things in their day-to-day activities. Person cannot focus, concentrate at their work. They start forgetting things easily. They constantly feel guilty about things that they would never even think about before. And most importantly, they start having suicidal ideations. So after I evaluate a case of depression in this manner, I check with the severity, whether it's coming across as a mild episode, a moderate episode, or a severe episode. And the severity depends on the number of features that I just spoke of. So once I understand which stage the person is at, and if the case is of a mild to moderate severity, then usually I start the person on a very mild mood elevator, along with the mild anti-anxiety, because usually depression and anxiety are hand in hand. They usually occur comorbidly. So I start the patient on this mood elevator, all also called as an antidepressant, considering which are the particular features that the patient requires focus on. And along with that, I usually start therapy with the patient where we focus on the maladaptive, distortive thoughts in the person's mind. Now, let me give you an example of these cognitively distorted thoughts. For example, if a person is taunted by another individual, maybe in his office or among his friends, so usually, a person who is mentally fine and the mental health is working adequately would do is just disregard that comment, or kind of feel that it's a one-off thing, and maybe the next time this happens, I will ask the other person to not pass such comments. But what a person who is going through depression or anxiety will do is feel that if this one person is thinking like this about me, basically everyone else is thinking about me in the same manner. And this makes the person feel extremely bad and starts ignoring other people. And this leads to a cascade of events where a person socially withdraws himself. So we on on thoughts which are distorted and help them recognize these thoughts and help them work out on these thoughts. Because, as I said, the car is not going to drive on its own. Over a period of time, the person starts improving, and then we start tapering the medications and focus primarily only on the therapy. Usually, a person in depression takes approximately 6 to 8 months to recover fully, but the improvement in symptoms occur within the first month itself.
And so, after those 6 to 8 months, when they're tapering off maybe the medication, are there certain tips that you give them to take with them to make sure they don't have any repeat episodes?
So ideally speaking, a person would not require any such medications. And as we understand that these antidepressants, they don't work immediately. They don't work like a fever medicine or a painkiller, where after taking them immediately the mood improves. What they do is they work through improving the level of serotonin in the brain. So that takes approximately 1 to 2 weeks to work on. So, in case what you are mentioning is a relapse of another episode, then the person needs to start the entire course of treatment back again. But yes, the thing that you mentioned is possible in anxiety. So, for example, if after treating anxiety, a person gets another episode of anxiety, then what we do is we tell them that this is an SOS medicine. An SOS medicine is a medicine that can be taken in emergencies, that can be taken, and the relief is within 15 minutes to 1 hour, and the person is back to his usual state. This is only for emergencies, but eventually, if this anxiety attack or panic attack keeps repeating again and again, then usually we ask the person to consult us immediately.
It's interesting. You said, what's your opinion on, I guess, people who are not willing to kind of confront their anxiety or depression? Because, and what I mean by that, doctor, is, when I was struggling with depression before in the past, I remember I was just kind of nervous about the side effects of taking medication. For instance, if I were to take Xanax, one of the side effects was I feel a little sluggish and I couldn't go to the gym. So it felt maybe a little bit unappealing to me. And then something like antidepressants, as you know, doctor, some of the side effects to that for men is a sexual dysfunction. And so that was kind of uncomfortable for me as a man to kind of want to go that route, and it took a lot for me to kind of be comfortable to take that. So do you feel like there are a lot of people who I guess don't want to confront their depression because they're maybe scared of the side effects, or maybe just scared in general?
Absolutely. I agree on this point, and I think this was a very good point that you highlighted about. So, unfortunately, just like how every other medicine has side effects, the antidepressants and anti-anxiety medicines also have side effects, as you correctly mentioned. Some of the other side effects, in fact, mentioned include weight gain. There are some includes gastric irregularities. So these things, yes, they do happen because the serotonin level is not increased only in the brain. It obviously goes through your body as well. So while we are trying to correct the level of serotonin in the brain, the body also unfortunately gets a little bit of this blowback. But the most important thing to remember over here is that whatever side effects you are facing are only temporary while the medication is going on. And once you recover from those episodes of depression or anxiety, your body gets back to its usual self. So the sexual dysfunction that happens is only temporary, but yes, it is a very limiting side effect. And thus, a lot of new medications are available now, particular antidepressants.
And I wanted to ask you, doctor, what's your opinion on maybe like extracurricular medicines? And what I mean by that is, you know, some people will say psychedelics can, you know, cure anxiety or depression. Some people will say marijuana cures my anxiety or depression. What's your opinion on those type of things?
So marijuana and psychedelics, for a reason, are called as psychoactive substances. So just because I'll give another analogy over here. Just because steroids help you in building up your muscles and other doping agents help you in building up your muscles and stamina, does not mean that they are safe for your body. Yes, they're doing something that you would not have been able to do so quickly. The same way these psychedelics and marijuana, they immediately cause a burst of these neurochemicals in the brain, which kind of momentarily makes you feel calm and better. But in the long run, what it is doing is, because it is activating these chemicals and pushing the brain to a limit, it is harming the brain as well. And in the long run, it reduces your threshold to handle any kind of stress or anxiety. And in fact, most of the people who come across to me with episodes of anxiety or depression have been kind of either addicted or have occasionally also used these substances. So basically, I would say that this is a myth or a misconception from on people's mind, that this is what is the actual work of these drugs, because this is what is written by people who actually themselves are consuming either marijuana or psychedelics. So I believe that we need quite this has been a debate that has been going on forever, and I believe that the common consensus that people have come to is that in general they are definitely harmful more than useful.
That's very interesting to hear. And then, doctor, you know, before I let you go, is there anything that you kind of want to, you know, say about, you know, depression or mental health? You know, maybe advice for anyone listening out there?
Absolutely. So I'm happy that you asked me this, because the one question that always someone asks me is, the doctor, how do I cope and take care of my mental health? I tell them one thing three times: self-care, self-care, and self-care. Unless and until you just the way you how you pamper your body, you go to the spa and all, the same way you need to pamper your mental health too. And going to the spa is not pampering your mental health, it's pampering only your physical health. What you need to do for your mental health is something that is unique, something that makes you feel calm and peaceful. Let me explain it to you in this manner, that stress and anxiety are steps that slowly you climb constantly. And whenever you do self care or you take out the concept of me time, now this me time is what people don't understand. People think that this me time is just kind of lying going on vacations once in a year, but that's not true. If that it was so easy to take care of your mental health that you have to do it only once in a year, nobody would have any kind of mental illnesses. So this is what is the highlight, that this me time requires you to do things repeatedly and consistently on a regular basis. So for example, for some people, it could be sitting by the window, drinking a cup of tea or coffee and, looking at the rains. For some people, it would be listening to some soft songs. For some people, it would be just, having a conversation regularly with a friend at a coffee shop. And most importantly, I would at the end say that in case there are points where you feel low or sad, remember one thing, that it's okay to be not okay. People are constantly in the pursuit of happiness, thinking that that is their ultimate goal. But I believe that these are just phases where you go high on one occasion and then you can feel low as well. You just need to understand that you can be low as well. And if it persists for beyond a particular time, yes, then you need to do something about it. But as long as it is something that is temporary, if you accept it and move ahead from it, it will help you to cope with it better.
Very well said, doctor. Thank you so much. I really felt like I learned a lot from you today. And it was really inspirational just to hear from you, because not only to my listeners, but mental health is something that I struggle with as well. So I definitely want to get more tips and tools on how to fix it. So thank you, doctor, for being on my show today.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure to impart some kind of awareness about mental health, because considering the current statistics on mental health, I believe every one person spreading information on mental health is a hero.
And
Deserve an applaud, yes, because this is one of the biggest pandemic, even, beyond the COVID pandemic as well. People don't realize that because this is a hidden pandemic, but this is equally significant as well. So you are doing an amazing job, Kendall. I mean, I would be very happy to say that you should continue doing this very regularly.
Thank you so much, doctor. That means a lot to me. It really does. Where can people find you online?
So I am available on Instagram through my ID, that is Psychiatrist Speaks. And otherwise, just a simple Google searching my name, that is Dr. Rahul Khemani, can give details of my contact number. So people can absolutely feel free to ask me anonymously or ask me questions about something that they are feeling doubtful about. And I could hopefully clear their doubts and help them in any way possible.
Perfect. Thank you so much, doctor. I'll email you shortly, and I really couldn't thank you more. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It is absolutely my pleasure. So looking forward to listening to this podcast.
Have a good rest of your day, doctor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ooh, what an amazing guest. Dr. Khemani, everyone. Thank him so much for being on the show. Really couldn't thank him enough, because he didn't ask for anything in return. He just wanted to spread awareness about mental health. And I was so excited to get him on the show. He's in India, and I had to set my alarm for 2 a.m. just to, get prepared for the interview. But really couldn't have been more excited to hear his thoughts. And I really felt like I learned a lot this episode as well. And it, really spoke to me about, when he was speaking, you could just hear the passion in his voice as well, which was, really inspiring. And I think we all got a really good glimpse in how to maybe have some helpful tips to deal with mental health and some of the realities that go along with that as well. So, please follow him on Instagram, follow our Instagram as well. Shoot us an email, DM us, tell us what you think about the episode, and, tell us maybe who you want to see on the show. And, speaking of that, under this episode will be a link to support the podcast. Any small donation helps. It really just goes to bringing more people on and, being able to interview more people and spread awareness. So anything you can do would, really greatly appreciated. And, we're creating a mental health app as well. More details on that will be coming shortly, but I really think it's going to help a lot of people, and I'm really excited to share that with you guys as well. And I got some great things coming. I'm interviewing someone that has to deal with,
the psychology of, child psychiatry. And I'm interviewing someone as well about sex and the psychiatry around that. Do women have performance anxiety? I don't know. I'm going to ask her. But, it's something that I'm really excited to talk about as well. So subscribe, share, listen, and enjoy. And thank you so much. Just want to say we stand together, we vent together. VentPack.